When August rolls around, we'll have wrapped up the inaugural season of Major League Cricket and we'll be rolling into the third full season of minor league cricket. Joining me today is my friend and former Canada international cricketer, Zubin Surkari, minor league cricket tournament director now and former ICC Americas development officer. Zubin, thank you very much for joining me.
No, I appreciate you taking the time and appreciate what you do here, and happy to kind of get on board and have a chat with you.
I've known you for a long time, longer than anybody in Major League Cricket, probably, aside from Dave Agnew.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it dates back to 2018 when I saw you at Church Park and we're just getting the ground ready for the ICC Americas qualifier. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, that week still stands out in my memory as a really hopeful time, and planted a lot of seeds of imagination across the cricket country here in the USA, in North America in general.
Absolutely, it's a great venue.
So this season will be the third season of minor league cricket. It'll be kind of the third and a half season, considering that we had the exhibition season in 2020, but it's the third full season, and minor league cricket helped set up, help prepare a lot of people for Major League Cricket. It helped prepare Major League Cricket in general, the people who operate Major League Cricket for Major League Cricket, but most importantly, it prepared the players for Major League Cricket. And we just had the draft.
I mean, ideally, we wanted this season to be to take place from June, and then June into kind of the beginning of July, and then there was a break for minor league, which brought on Major League, and then commencing and starting over in August. But now we've kind of moved from that schedule to an August-September window.
Right. So, you had to be flexible this year. So the season, like you said, in August through September.
Yeah.
But a very exciting time. We have the draft coming up here shortly, yet to be determined date. How many teams are we going to have this season?
Well, 26 teams all across. There's going to be 6 in the West. The Central is going to have 8. East is going to have 6, and the South will have 6 now. So it's fairly somewhat evenly out over the course of the season. Same teams as last year, pretty much. There's an addition of a new team, which will be announced shortly. But another exciting another national tournament that everyone's looking forward to.
Right, and recently, Washington rebranded as the Baltimore Royals.
Yeah, I mean, it's with the new DC team and then the Washington team coming into the major leagues. There's a bit of a rebranding with DC Hawks and changing it over to Baltimore Royals, which is great. It's been quite good, and they've been very, very accommodating that way. They're actually moving to the South region, which evens it out. The South had 5 teams before, and this year they're going to be kind of make it 6, so it's a bit more evenly spaced throughout the division. But yeah, it's we're so appreciative of all the owners and what they can do and how flexible they are. It's not an easy, it's a challenging season, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So our owners are fantastic for us, and it's for them to be accommodating and to deal with the adversity at times. It's huge, but we're looking forward to it again this year.
Great, and that means for me, we'll see another team down here at Church Street Park, most likely. The Baltimore Royals hopefully coming here for some games against the Morrisville Raptors.
That's right. Yeah. It should be a bit of a drive for the Royals, but to play on a facility of Church Street Park's quality, I think that's huge. And there's not many teams that complain about playing there, if at all.
Right.
It's a great atmosphere, and it's almost every game, as it usually comes down to the wire with the pitch and the outfield and the lights, and just the overall vibe of the place just seems to bring out the best in players and the environment. So I don't think anyone's going to have a huge problem going down there or coming up there. So
Right, we do have some awfully close games at Church Street Park, famously, the Stallions elected to play their 3-game series in Morrisville both seasons. They could have played them up in New Jersey if they wanted to, or in another ground if they wanted to, but they decided to play away, even though they finished better off than the Raptors did.
Yeah, and look, I think as a former cricketer, it's you want to play on the best facilities and the best pitch around. All things, you're gonna travel a little bit more, and if it's a cost issue, generally, the players are going to encourage the owners to just go, like, let's try to do that. and that's one of our mandates is to try to get more cricket and more grounds being established in the US.
Right.
Hybrids and turfs, of course. It is challenging, but if we can get to a point where the vast majority of teams have something that mimics Church Street, which is my goal, to get teams and ownership structures and minor league teams to have a facility like that. I think the landscape of the game changes massively across the nation.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah, it's. I think we've talked about Church Street Park probably every single episode that I've had. Talked
Yeah,
about Dave Agnew every time. How he did such a great
Dave.
job. Yeah, he's just a fantastic guy. You've had a lot of interactions with Dave Agnew here at Church Street. Also, you being Canadian, you're very familiar with the GT20 and how he
Yeah.
contributed to that.
Yeah, I mean, Dave's working with us now, and I've said it before, and then he's just a great person to have around. His knowledge of cricket wickets, and it's a bit of a science if you talk to him, and his knowledge is unparamount. And I think having him on board and slowly kind of growing that ability to build cricket wickets of that standard. And with the environment that the U.S. has, the Northeast and the South is massively different, and he's familiar with that.
Right.
He's just going to produce good wickets for T20 cricket across and just wickets in general. So I think we're very fortunate to have him involved with us and in the U.S. So I think that's just as we know, he's a miracle worker at times, and
Yeah,
a good
no.
fella to boot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he's good at sharing his knowledge too. Our Church Street Park is still in great shape. A lot thanks in part to his mentoring and his teaching here. But yeah, speaking of, the 2018 ICC Americas Qualifier, which is what we were talking about, where Canada and USA, where that's around the time we met. We met leading up to that. And I remember sitting there on the bench watching one of the games with you for a few minutes, just taking it all in, talking about how spectacular it was. And now we get to see this at Church Street Park every weekend, home game. Every time there's a Saturday game, it has a similar feeling to me. And then you were there for the finals this year, the minor league cricket finals. So yeah, it's just a big, to me, it's a big demonstration of what we're capable of as a country. What cricket can be in the USA.
Facilities are the biggest issue, I feel, in this country. It's challenging to get turf wickets in, and even if you get them in, you have to maintain them. It's cost. It's massively it's a financial burden in many ways. Just in terms of maintaining it, upkeep, you can have it built, and then you have a finite amount of time where you can use them. I'm from Canada. We have turf up there, and it's a challenge to get that kind of stuff done. But it has to start somewhere, and the hybrid option is a good option.
Sure.
You can play with it. You can play on it with spikes. It has mimics turf in many ways. It's less maintenance for people that are just trying to I don't think it's going to replicate turf, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. More so in the Northeast where the weather is challenging. And it's good for cricket. It's just good for cricket. It gets people playing and feeling like they're playing on turf. There's been a lot of positive news out of that, and our mandate is to try to get more of those installed across the country, which allows for better cricket to be played. We had 4 going in Atlanta. We have a couple in Pittsburgh. There's 4 going in Chicago.
Right.
We're hopefully going to have 1 in Washington. We're hopefully going to have 1 in Philadelphia, 1 in New Jersey, 1 or 2 in New Jersey. So we're slowly building that out. Each team, one of the mandates that we have with our ownership structure is that each of the teams within essentially 3 years have to have priority access to a ground, either turf or hybrid. And I think that's good. It's what cricket's meant to be played on,
right?
Or at least mimics as close to it. And we're putting some pretty hard. And we've said, look, this year I've said clearly that this year has to have 100% of our games on turf or hybrid. and I'm doing it. And if if the teams don't have it, they're gonna have to travel, and that's just the nature, and that's the
Right.
downside. But it's not for lack of trying from our ownership. I know it's challenging to get fields, to get space, to build a ground.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes back to what our ownership structure is, and it really comes down to passionate people, passionate American cricket fans that want to grow the sport and investing time and money, lots of
Right.
money into building facilities and running these kind of semi-professional teams. So they have my support massively, and I'll help them. And Ace and Major Leagues is trying to do that. So we're there for it.
I think a lot of people around the world in the cricket world kind of miss out sometimes on how humongous the USA is. It's a massive country. And our hubs, if you look at the way the drafts go in minor league cricket, you get an idea where cricket's played. There are draft zones and there are non-draft zones. And the non-draft zones are little special little pockets, basically, special little towns or cities where cricket happens to be a big thing, but it's not near another massive market or another market where cricket is a big thing. For one, Morrisville, North Carolina. North Carolina cricket is something, but then you got to go 6 hours either direction to get to where cricket is something somewhere else. And so we're outside of a draft zone in Morrisville, which means the team can pick itself every year. When you're inside a draft zone, you have a cap of players that you can keep, and then you have to draft from a pool. That's how it's been done the last couple of years. Is that pretty much how it's going to be done again this year?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, every team has 3 priority players, which means that they're allowed to pick. The players are allowed to pick a team, a priority team that they want to play for.
Uh-huh.
Within a zone. Each team the player regulations have mandated that each team has to have 2 under-21s in the playing 11 and 1 under-19 in the squad, which kind of gives it a bit of a youth element, and that kind of aligns with the ICC requirements for age group for under-19s going to the next World Cup and stuff like that, or qualifiers. I mean, it's there's teams that are outside of zones, and we're trying to help them out. It is challenging. There's been a few changes in players and relocations and
Sure.
all that. I think we have professional players or players that want to play professionally, and obviously there's hubs that are not developed as yet, and that means that players, they're going to go to places where they can play cricket 6 to 8 months on wickets and things like that. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do, is to
Sure.
encourage minor league teams to develop cricket facilities within their places, within their cities and towns that draw players to want to play. I had an example. I played in Canada, which the weather is not great. Trust me about that. We have a very short season, but the facilities in and around Toronto are fantastic for cricket. We have
Right.
our top league plays on turf. So if that was, hypothetically, if that was my choice between playing in Toronto or playing in somewhere like Dallas, I'd still play in Toronto because the facilities are good. So a place like Seattle or Michigan, which is outside of that kind of region and the weather's not conducive, even if the facilities are relatively good, I think it's still going to draw players to stay there. And as you kind of, as we're trying to grow the local catchment of young players, you're going to want them to stay there and play for their local team.
Sure.
That takes time, of course. That's
Right.
we're not opposed to that. We're familiar with that, but that's kind of where things are. And it's a massive country. Seattle won it last year, and Seattle's all by itself up there.
Right.
They're traveling, huge cricket, capacity,
Right.
but it's going to take time for them to build and get out there. Now with the major league team kind of being there, that's huge. But in time, we're trying to get facilities to be built there and keeping the kids coming through and playing for their actual city and town. So,
Well, if you the Seattle, what they pulled off last year, it's going to be tough for them to reproduce that every year because of what you said. They're kind of standalone, and their role players were fantastic last year. They already had three superstars pretty much coming carrying over from the year before. And they just needed better role players, and they got some guys moved up there, and that's how they got good. That's how they got that good was they had guys that literally relocated to Seattle, and
Yeah.
that's a tough thing to pull off regularly, for a team outside of a major hub, you know.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, hats off to them for pulling that off. That's really fantastic. It's actually, when you sit back and think about it, it's really impressive that they were able to accomplish that.
Yeah, and it's I think it's going to be a tough thing to replicate, and they're going to have some challenges. So it looks like they're going to lose a few players, and some have relocated, and that's kind of the challenge with the rules of picking players within your draft zone.
Sure.
But again, it's, I mean, and I keep kind of pushing back and saying, look, a couple lump years of just kind of digging down and kind of and incentivizing local development. I mean, the entire
Yeah.
our theory around minor league cricket is to kind of grow local talent, local catchment. That's why we have draft zones. That's why we have youth players mandated in the playing 11. Look, the intention of this is to be a development arm for the national team and for Major League. And in order to do that, we have to have a strong domestic pool of players and a strong domestic pool of a funneling system that's going upward. So
Sure.
that's kind of what it's happening to.
So you mentioned that the rule is now that teams have to play 2 U21s in the playing 11 and 1 U19 at least in the squad. The rules prior were that you had to have one of each in the playing 11, 1 U19 and 1 U21. So it looks like things have changed a little bit.
We didn't want the under 9s to be a tick box exercise. We just wanted, like, we mandated. So we kind of downloaded all the stats. We looked at how many, where they batted or where they bowled, how many overs they bowled, how many actually opportunities they got. And we're like, oh, you know what? Are we doing them a disservice? The team's a disservice, and are we doing the players a disservice? Are we just carrying them for the sake of carrying them and they're there? So we kind of just did that. And then, we're like, let's kind of make it one under 21. So the same under 19s can kind of go another couple of years.
Sure.
And look, if there's an under 19, if there's two good under 19s, you should play them, and that's just the nature of it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, some teams won't change. They'll still, Morrisville still has, we still play a lot of guys who are in the U21, U19 category, and that's going to continue. But we're kind of blessed with a lot of young, very good talent here, and we have a lot of young, very good talent that we don't have to get drafted away from us either. That we don't have to get pulled away by another local team, lured away, I guess is a better word. With minor league cricket, you have to have performers in every slot to do what Seattle did this last year. You have to have performers in every slot to do what Silicon Valley Strikers have done the last couple of years, and New Jersey. And New Jersey has the benefit of having an absolutely phenomenal U19 player on their team, Sai Mukamala. And,
Right.
and so it's almost like that slot can separate you completely from another team. If you have, Sai Mukamala just scored a century for USA Cricket, one of the best centuries in recent memory too. A very good. I mean, he did it on a record chase for USA, and he looked great the whole time. Not everybody's going to have that. I mean, that's a very rare thing to have a guy that good at that age. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. I think it does make a little bit more sense. It kind of evens the playing field out a little bit more for the teams. Gives everybody, it kind of adds to some parity a little bit.
Yeah, and it gives teams a little bit of flexibility. Look, in all honesty, if we're doing this right, we don't even need that. We probably don't even need that regulation going forward. And if we have a robust under 19 and youth system and players are coming through of quality, we probably don't even need that to be. We don't even need it to put in the player regulation. It's there now, and I think it's a good thing.
Right.
And we want 50 size in the next 10, 15 years.
Right.
And that's absolutely possible. We need players of that quality to come through the system. He's an American-born kid. He's played in the Northeast and probably on synthetic wickets his entire life, which is even more impressive that he's gone and played a very mature knock against a good team in a chase.
Right.
It's exactly what the story of what we should be, or the story of cricket in this country should be. And he's,
Right.
he's a great ambassador for that. He's an awesome kid. I really, I got all the time in the world for him. I came through a North American system. I was born and raised in Canada, so it resonates massively with me to try to pull players and what we need to do for players that are young, that are talented. Um, a lot of it is trying to funnel the best ones into a system and to make them play it. I'm a firm believer that you're only as good as who you play against, and the minor league is a fantastic arm for that.
Right.
An under 21 or an under 19, Ali Sheikh, for example, is now playing with a Corey Anderson in the same field. I don't think you have that. That doesn't really happen in a lot of places. Like, you got to earn your
Sure.
stripes to be playing with a first class cricketer of that,
Right.
an international of that quality, and that happens quite a lot in the minor league. U.S. cricket domestically has been a bit sporadic. There's just lots of talent and a lot of pockets of places and club cricket and all that, but there's been never a kind of a season long 10-week cricket with context, played in good ground, it's
Right.
broadcasted.
Right.
That element has come, and it's kind of, now we're seeing players, we're able to see players across the country. We get to see them on video. Some of it's one camera, but eventually we're getting to a three, and we talked about the premium broadcast quality and
Sure.
what that looks like.
Yeah.
Year on year, we're trying to improve 3 camera, 4 camera, 6 camera, commentary, graphic overlays, replays,
Right.
highlights,
Score
all
bugs.
these things, score bugs.
Yeah.
It just kind of puts cricket into context, and there's a bit more, there's a bit more structure around it, which I think is huge. And that's, it's, you're able to see a side, and you're from California, you're going to see a side playing, and oh, this kid's good. Or you see a Seattle team, they have an under 19 player, it's a young player coming through. It gives everybody a bit of a, an even playing field, and to see, and exposes our cricket on a national stage.
Sure, sure. And you and I have had a conversation about how difficult associate cricket is. We've talked about the context of associate cricket is unmatched. It's incredibly hard. And so you want your players playing games of context before you pick them, before you put them on the spot, before you before they have to score a century in the biggest chase in U.S. history. And so it is very good for the players to play in meaningful games where they're being watched by everyone in the country, where everybody's keeping tabs on how they're doing. They're being tried against the best players in the country, and some even phenomenal players that are brought over as pros. So yeah, we've talked about that 100 times, how amazingly hard associate cricket is.
Yeah, I mean, it's life or death cricket. It really is. It's life or death sport. I mean, PDP will probably know. He's a stats guy. He'll know how many times a team has come that close. And I think, and I'll be pretty sure that almost every single associate in the last little while, the top associates, have all kind of copped it at some point in time. That they've come that close. When
Right, yeah.
2005 when we played, we beat Namibia. Namibia was this close to qualifying. We qualified.
Right.
Canada lost to Nepal in that crazy chase, which basically got Nepal ODI status.
Right.
They maintained it until now, which dropped Canada down.
Yeah.
So every team has gone through that nail biter.
Right.
Win at all costs, or you're back driving an Uber.
Right.
Back driving an Uber, playing international cricket. It's kind of, so it massively resonates with me. That's how that was cricket for us. We had, 1 or 2 tournaments. We used to have the ICC trophy, which is basically winner takes all.
Right.
Top 3 kind of go on to the World Cup, and you have to perform in that time. But if you didn't, you're back down to associate cricket and
right.
and few chances. So yeah, it's challenging, and I think the only way you get better and give yourself a better chance of winning is to improve your domestic structure. That you're only as good as the domestic structure. If you look at all the top test teams and international teams, your domestic structure is what counts. If you look at New Zealand, with only has 5 million people,
Yeah.
their domestic structure is tight. They have a small pool of players, but they seem to extract a lot out of it. And I think, and every country is unique. That every single country has their issues, and US is no different. If in many ways it's challenging because it's so big. There's so many players. The weather in the Northeast is massively different from Texas and Florida and other places. So those factors have to build into what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
But that's part and parcel of what we're trying to do here is to kind of keep chipping away at the domestic structure, keep feeding that bottom tier of players and getting them better, getting them stronger, getting them more internationally prepared, and working towards a career and a professional career. And that's kind of, I think that's the philosophy around minor league. It's an exciting proposition to be around. So.
It's not like England where you can have like an entire decade in like the 90s where you're lousy and nothing happens to you. Like in associate cricket, you can't have a bad decade. You're going to end up in the third or fourth division. You know what I mean? You're going to be lower than Kenya. The Challenge League. Look at Kenya. Look what happened to them. Yeah. And like in Canada just barely missed ODI status in 2019, and then absolutely dominated the Challenge League. Like they were clearly the best team in the Challenge League.
Yeah.
But they still had to fight for their chance to get ODI status again. They still had to fight tooth and nail for that chance. Yeah. So it makes it difficult to sustain a domestic structure when your funding is on the line all the time and things like that as a national governing body, which is why it's so good to have a commercial partner that can take care of that for you, that it is incentivized to take care of that for you. And minor league cricket, major league cricket is great, it's fantastic, but to me, minor league cricket is kind of the heart of so many things. It's the pipeline to major league cricket. Obviously, it's weird because minor league baseball and minor league cricket are very different things. They're similar in a lot of ways, but minor league baseball is affiliates of the teams, and the players climb up the ranks, and then they get promoted to a team. Minor league cricket, on the other hand, is almost like our county cricket, but T20. And this is basically our domestic structure.
Yeah, it is a domestic structure, in my opinion. I don't think you can't. It's so difficult to try to, like, what is a player in Ohio? Like, what's their pathway? I always look at it this: like, what's their pathway to the national team? Like, how does a person in Ohio play for the national team? That's a question you got to ask.
Right.
Like, how does that person do it? So, in the previous iteration, there was play locally and maybe play in Ohio somewhere,
right,
in a local club, and then somebody says, hey, you should look at this guy, or maybe the word gets around, maybe they play in the opens, some of the open tournaments, which are kind of a week long. Maybe it does well, maybe it doesn't do well.
Sure.
Maybe the wickets are good, maybe they're not.
Right.
Some of, if you're lucky, you're playing on turf. Sometimes you're playing on a synthetic. I think that's those type of things are those factors are not. And again, it's hard to kind of put together what that looks like. Now you kind of got like, all right, well, if I get my way into one of the minor league teams, which is 26, which is quite a significant amount, whether you get one that's local or you come in as a free agent.
Sure.
Look like a guy like Fani. If you look like Fani, who kind of was just off the radar, probably not thing. Now he's gone. He's done really well, and now he's got he's tied into the major league. So it's that opportunity, and that's there now. There's a mechanism for good players to kind of get through the system. At least there's light. I always go back to kind of this grade cricket in Australia, which I think is kind of the best structure. It's a small tight structure. You play kind of for one of the A grade teams, the grade comps that have a bit of history. And basically you do well at that grade cricket, you're playing for your state level, and then from your state level you perform, there's 5 teams that you have to perform for.
Right.
You could be playing for Australia, at
least
what
it's
the laid out in some capacity, right? And ideally in an ideal world, each one of the the minor league teams funnels down into a good club structure, because that's,
Sure.
the minor league is only a 10-week, at the moment it's 10-week. I mean, there's discussion on increasing it or having some kind of capacity to play longer throughout the year, and keep players playing more often.
Sure.
But again, the local structure has to, we're hoping that this kind of top down, hey, it's Major League is really cool and cricket's kicking off. All right, there's a minor league. All right, now what happens to local clubs? Now local clubs, there's more people playing. Hey, we should be playing on better facilities. We should be doing this. We should have a local club competition that's better. And that's how the game grows. Is
Right.
it going to happen next year? No. Is it going to happen 5 years from now? Hopefully.
Right.
And that's kind of what everybody should be striving for if they want domestic players born and raised to be playing for their country or playing for a major league team. And isn't that our goal? Our goal
Yeah.
is to grow the sport and get more fans and get more people loving the sport and coming out to watch games and to be the umpires and the scorers and all the volunteers and the back end people that we have that are crucial to growing the game.
Yeah.
Those are massive people, and people that will probably never play at the highest level, but they need to play and be part of that kind of ecosystem. So
Sure.
and that's all part and parcel of the game.
You mentioned, what is the guy in Ohio going to do? I think we already know the template for people in Ohio, how they make their way, and that's bowl 90-mile-an-hour Yorkers that swing in. I think that's
that's our way. There's that way.
There's that way, the Ali Khan way. You can make it from Ohio if you can do what Ali Khan can do. But now you can actually learn how to do that on as you go, by playing for a minor league team somewhere. I mean, it's hard to learn how to do that, really.
We want to unearth these talents across the country. I think that's one of the best ways to do, is to kind of just have this opportunity for players to expose, and somebody sees them, and especially now with how much cricket's being broadcast, even if it's a single camera. I played in Denver for a couple of years. Not great. I didn't do great, but every game we put a little camera, at least at the home ground, and it's played, and you can watch it back, and these type of things all add to that opportunity to get exposed, and within a couple of years you could be playing. You really literally could be playing for the major leagues in a couple of years.
And Fani is the perfect example of that. Drafted in the major leagues 2 years ago, nobody knew who he was. I mean, he was playing minor league, but he wasn't getting a ton of chances. Then he gets picked up by Seattle. This is part of the big Seattle coup last season, where they got a lot of great players to come out to Seattle, and he was one of them. And he got on that team because he performed well in some local tournaments with some of the players, and he earned the trust of them, and they were like, "We want to bring you to Seattle." And now there's 26 of those opportunities in the USA that if you show what you've got, someone wants to bring you there because they want to win.
There's one thing I know about the owners. They're always theyey're looking for the next, they're looking for a player, and trying to find and unearth a talent that's around. So they're going to be scouring whatever and taking the advice of somebody who said, "This guy, give this guy a shot. He smashes it, or he bowls good Yorkers." The owners are strictly thinking about trying to get their team better and do whatever they can. I got a message from an owner today. He's like, "Yeah, I need a middle order batter that smashes it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Start looking around the local leagues here and there and see if you can pick one up. But I think the best players in the country. I don't think there's anybody missing out. I hope there's nobody missing out that's massively talented.
We have lost some cricketers over the years, some very good American cricketers over the years, because there was really nothing else for them. It was either you play for the national team, or you don't. Like Tim Royale, and we lost him because he really didn't have a way to sustain his career. And you get to a certain age, you start thinking about, you have to have a career. You got a family, you got to feed your family. You got to make these things work. So the dream dies out. And it has died out for a lot of cricketers in the USA who are phenomenal talents. And now it's less likely for that to happen because of the minor league, major league pipeline. It's much less likely for something like that. It's a little bit tragic,
I'm an example of that. I'm a perfect example of that. I stopped playing at 32. Probably I was probably done a little bit, injuries and but I think those questions start coming into your mindset of like how, I'm playing, you know, 20 days a year,
Right.
internationally. Maybe, we're trying to train on the weekends, and I was training in the morning,
Right.
then going to my job, and then trying to train, and it's, and I didn't have a family and things, but other guys do, and other players do, and it's a challenge, and
Right.
if you're your early 30s and getting into like your mid 30s, you're starting to question like if this is, can you really commit the time? And cricket's a mental game. It
Yeah.
takes your financial security and your future and starting a family and all that kind of things is
Right.
those are areas that and hopefully this gives players a little bit more of an opportunity to play a little bit further and play cricket at a decent level, make
Right.
a bit of money and kind of do that. So and you never know, you do well, you can play 2 or 3 seasons, 5 seasons into your mid to late 30s for the major leagues, and
Sure.
gives you an opportunity to kind of extend your career and have a bit of fun,
Right.
hopefully become some dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we talked about how you did play for Canada. You played in some Audi Cups, which you and I have also had many conversations about how great it would be to revive the Audi Cup in pretty much any style, any fashion.
Yeah, it's isn't it it's sports oldest rivalry.
Right.
It's the first sport, not just cricket, that's played
Right.
between two countries. My cricket club, and I'm gonna push my club here, 1827 Toronto Cricket Club. It's got some history. There's history in the U.S. with Philadelphia and Marion and
Sure.
Germantown. There's history of cricket in this country, and there's definitely history between Canada and USA. I think it's I would love to see the Audi Cup played in some capacity. I think days cricket is great. I think it's kind of like a derby or a it's Kentucky Derby kind of thing, and people kind of dress up or whatever,
Yeah.
and sell that kind of that atmosphere to people, and who wouldn't want to get around it. It's just a day out watching some cricket, 3 day
Sure.
cricket or 4 day cricket or 1 2 day cricket, and then get some T20s, both teams have ODI status now.
Yeah.
You can do whatever. It's why not?
Agree.
We're that close. It's a good rivalry. The best. I keep saying the best three T20 matches I've seen live are the three T20s that I've seen with Canada and USA. So it just makes absolute sense. They're pretty evenly matched.
Yeah.
We create the theater. It works. So
Right.
yeah, it could be our Ashes. It could be a North American Ashes, and it just makes total sense. Just
Makes
put it on the calendar.
Yeah,
Put it on
get
the
it
calendar.
get it on there for sure. Yeah, it's absolutely the best games I've seen. We saw two of the same ones together.
I mean, the theater is there, right? And you and I both agree that there's a energy in Church Street that just the people, the atmosphere where it's located, the ground itself, the lights, the community. It's there's something about that place which is very special, which is why we all love it there, and not only the community but the people that are involved, and
Right.
Jerry, we're a big fan of Jerry around here.
Yeah, heck
I think
yeah.
he's a good man. He's always helping us out. Mark,
And Pat.
Jana, Bobber,
Yeah.
Pat,
Yeah.
a guy who's passionate about the wicket there.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just like it's a bit of a perfect mix, and it's kind of I think we all love being there.
Another thing you and I have in common is ice hockey. We both have played ice hockey. You grew up in Canada, so I'm willing to say that you're probably a better ice hockey player than me.
Religion.
But but yeah, so also we're hockey fans. Um so have you been watching the NHL playoffs at all?
My Leafs. The Leafs are. I say my Leafs. They're not my Leafs, but you have to support them. Made it to the second round. They've unfortunately lost the first game against the Panthers, which probably has more Canadian fans in Florida than the actual Panthers. But yeah, it's look, hockey is such a great game, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
and we're bloody good at it. So,
Oh yeah.
I'm always repping the boys, and when Canada plays, I think it's one of the best feelings if you've ever been in Canada when they've won, which they've won almost every time I've been there.
Yeah.
Canada Cups and the Olympics. Um, yeah, so it's definitely, and I don't know, little known fact, 22 is my number for cricket. That's the number I played, and it actually, the reason I picked that is my favorite hockey player is Rick Tocchet, played for Philadelphia, and his dad and my dad were knew each other, so he would send signed hockey sticks from the Philadelphia Flyers and a jersey that was signed, so they're all hanging up. I'm like, oh, I love this guy. He's a scrappy kind of goal
Sure.
scorer,
Good player.
enforcer, great
Yeah.
player,
Yeah.
enforcer, and not the massively talented guy, but which is kind of like me, just kind of scrappy and try to get the job done.
Sure.
So 22's been that's why I use it. So he's made a huge influence, and he's a great guy to kind of emulate on the cricket field.
Right. That's excellent. Yeah. So here's a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Canada related questions here. Would you rather go to a Stanley Cup final game or the Ashes?
Who's playing in the Stanley Cup?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. Let's say that at least one of the teams is Canadian. I'm not going to say it's the Leafs because that's too
It'd
easy.
have to be the Leafs.
It has to be the
Over
Leafs.
the Ashes, yeah. But I've been to the Ashes too, so
Which
Ashes.
where did you go to England for the Ashes?
No, Australia,
Oh,
Adelaide, 2000. What was it? When was it? 2002. That's the one where
okay.
McGraw took a catch right in front of me. Actually, we were right there in Adelaide. Took this really good catch, and
Nice.
it's the ball. It's the one where Nasser Hussain gets bowled on the last ball of the day. I think either Brett Lee or Andy Bickle, one of the two, just
Huh.
tears him up, and he's just like hanging his head because it's the last ball of the day, trying to bat it out. Ashes. I don't know. There's something special about Test cricket
Sure.
in the Ashes. Uh, it's such an environment. It's a long day out.
Right.
At the ebbs and flows of it, I think I'd take it over the Stanley Cup Finals.
Wow. Unless it's of course, if
Maybe
the
not
Leafs.
Canada. Yeah, if the Leafs were in it, I probably would do that. And if Canada versus USA ice hockey, or Canada versus Russia
Oh, yeah, there you
hockey,
go.
like a
Yeah.
an Olympic kind of thing, I might sway me the other way, but I don't know. Like, it's tough to say no to an Ashes.
All right. Next Canada question. This is the
Yeah,
last one. Tim Hortons or the beer store? Which is better?
come on, man. You know me better than that. You know where I'm resonating. Depends what time it is, I guess, in the day. Anything after 3 p.m., 4 p.m., I'm leaning the other way, right?
Yeah, well, there you go. It's the two stores make up your whole. They can make up your whole day. You got the early part of your day, Tim Hortons, end
Yeah,
part of the day, the beer store.
yeah. You know me better than that, mate. I'm leaning the beer stores. The beer stores where the beers are. That's their slogan, right? The
Right.
beer store. It's where the beers are. So, yeah. Come on, anybody knows me.
Yeah. There
Anybody
you
knows
go.
me. The variety, and it's yeah.
The
I'm leaning the beer store way. Yeah.
There you go. The little rollers that come out of the little
Yeah.
window.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not pretty in there, but it's effective.
Nah, it's great. Yeah. Zubin, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you as it always is. And I can't wait for the minor league season, and it's in good hands with you. So take care of it.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. Look, it's I know you're a huge proponent and supporter of it. You do a great job, and as an American, born and raised American, getting into cricket, and what you do for promoting the game and for us, and just kind of getting the word out there. It's we massively appreciate it, and it's we get to spend a bit of time and talk some cricket anytime. I'm happy to be there. We'll hopefully see you on the park in the coming summer. Really, it's such an exciting summer. In all
Yeah,
honesty, it's a huge summer for us. We're really looking forward to it. So yeah, man.
absolutely.
We'll talk hockey, and hopefully next time we speak, the Leafs are lifting the Stanley Cup. That'll
Well,
be huge.
well, hopefully we live a long time for that, right?
what is it? 60? It's got to be 60 years now.
Yeah, I think it's
1967.
just
Yeah.
it's
Don't
almost
remind
60
me.
years. Yeah.
These fans, but that's all right. We'll get there.
All right.
Cool, buddy. Yeah. Cheers,
Thank
man.
you.
Yeah.